It's time for the Xenoblade Chronicles review for the Wii. I remember seeing the petition to bring this game to North America. I didn't sign it because I had very little interest in it at the time, but now that I've played it, it's become one of those games where I wish I hadn't waited so long to play, so let's find out why. This is a massive JRPG, and one of the first, if not the first, of its kind I've ever played. The story is set in a world where two titans, the Bionis and the Mechanis, are the existence holders for other beings which use their bodies as their home. One of the beings on the Bionis are Homs, who are in a seemingly never-ending war with the inhabitants of the Mechanis, the Mechon. The main story focuses around a Homs named Shulk. As you play through, you'll meet up with other characters to join your party. There are two modes of playing, exploring/interacting, and fighting. When exploring, you have the freedom of going virtually anywhere within the map, picking up items scattered throughout, and just traveling in general. It's not open world, but it may feel like it from time to time because of just how large each area is. Fighting can be complex, yet rewarding. When you first engage in battle, your character will always face the targeted enemy and a list of commands will show up on screen. I'll admit, when I first began playing, I was a bit confused on how the fighting mechanics worked. Once in battle, my first impression was that I had to perform every action, including auto attacks. Yet, as the name suggests, these attacks happen automatically without a need for user input. Your main job is to strategize with the different attacks and abilities, known as arts, your specific character has, along with the arts of the other characters. For example, with Shulk, one of his arts is Slit Edge. If you use it on one of the sides of the enemy, this art, when connected, will not only deal damage, but also lower the physical defense of the enemy. Another art is Backslash, where if performed behind the enemy, will yield higher damage than if you used it in front or on the sides of the enemy. You'll have to wait for a cooldown period in order to use the same art again. I greatly enjoy these elements because it forces strategic planning on your part in more way than one. What I mean is, you will have to have another character draw aggro towards them in order for you to perform these arts with their max effectiveness. Aggro is basically the level of animosity an enemy has towards a character. If the character you're maining has high aggro, it could hinder your ability to perform your specific arts with their max potential. As in the case with Shulk, if you're playing as him and you've drawn too much aggro, the enemy will face you until another character draws higher aggro, in which during that time your arts that require you to strike the enemy from an angle other than the front won't be able to be as effective until then. When battling, you'll be given quick time event chances to perform. Once triggered, the game will pause for just a second and a ring with the B button will appear in the center. Quick time events happen when a character performs a move and another character notices, whether good or bad. If a character connects a hit well, the quick time event will trigger, and if successful, another character will comment on how well they did. The same goes for a character missing an attack.
Right? Don't worry about it.
Performing successful QuickTime events yields multiple rewards. The party gauge near the top left of the screen will fill up some, the affinity between the two characters will increase, and the tension of a character has a chance to rise. The party gauge is your best non-character friend. If the gauge is at least 1/3 full, you'll be able to revive a fallen party member. If it's completely full, you'll be able to perform a chain attack where all three characters can perform successive moves to bring down enemies. This is a great ability that can turn the tide of battle in your favor. Certain arts from one character can complement another, leading to some great combinations. Winning battles will gain you XP towards your level in arts and affinity between your characters. Enemies will drop loot in the form of items to collect, combat gear, crystals, and gems. Gems are especially important because of the additional boost to stats they can give your characters. I suggest you don't follow my lead and not change up the main party member until after you've acquired more characters as you play through. I like to main Shulk for the most part, but maining other characters definitely has its benefits. As in the case of Sharla, she's basically, well, not basically, she is the healer of the group, and I like to main her when in a boss battle. This is where I need to talk about the AI. Because you only control one character at a time, the AI controlling your other two party members will perform decently for the most part. There are times though that it just doesn't do well enough when the situation calls for, so I find it best to switch up the party layout often, especially deep into the game. Like I said, I usually main Sharla when fighting tougher enemies and bosses, yet I like to main glass cannons such as Shulk and Melia for the majority of the game. I will say the AI does pretty good controlling tank characters such as Rein. I hardly ever mained Rein because it was more crucial that I main characters with more strategic arts. Not to say Rein and other tanks don't have strategic abilities that need to be used in certain situations, and this is where one of my favorite game mechanics comes into play. So Shulk wields a weapon called the Minato. It's a mysterious, powerful blade which holds great abilities. Because Shulk wields it, he's able to see future events, and this becomes extremely important when fighting enemies. When engaged in battle, if you or another character is about to be knocked out from an attack, The battle will pause, the screen will flash, and you'll be given a vision of the future attack. Once seen, the battle will resume, and a countdown gauge at the top of the screen will begin. The gauge gives you information of the enemy about to perform the attack, the type of attack, the future victim, and how long you have until the vision becomes reality. During this time, you're able to change the future, but only if you perform actions which disrupt it. For example, if you or one of your teammates is about to be knocked out from a physical attack, you could perform one of the Monado's special abilities called Shield, which will surround everyone in their own impenetrable barrier, so long as the level of the ability is high enough to withstand the attack. If so, the gauge at the top will break and the vision will not become reality. Another example is to warn one of your teammates about the vision, however you must have at least 1/3 of your party gauge filled in order to do so. If you warn a teammate, you're able to use one of their abilities to hopefully change the future. Choose wisely, as you only get one chance. There are many scenarios in which you can cancel the future knockout, which is greatly appreciated. This is one of the best looking Wii games out there. I was shocked at how well everything looks. Although it's 480p, some areas seem to border HD resolution just because the artwork is so beautiful. My favorite areas were Satoral Marsh at night, and Aerith Sea both day and night. The controls were basically perfect. I hear most people play with the Classic Controller Pro, but I had no issues with the Wiimote Nunchuck combo. Only thing I wish was that if you were using the combo, it incorporated some usage of the motion controls, like swinging the Wiimote to perform a QuickTime event, but it's not that big of a deal. The camera followed you well for the most part, but sometimes it could give you unfavorable angles. Fortunately, you had virtually full control of the camera. This game has one of the best music soundtracks ever in a video game. Again, some of my favorites are Satoral Marsh at night, and Aerith Sea both day and night. There weren't any songs I didn't like. Most of the boss fights were pretty difficult, I must admit. Now that's normally not a bad thing, but the problem I had with it was that it seemed as though some of them were just too high a level when you reached them. I know they're supposed to be strong, of course, but some of them just seemed too strong when you first encounter them and wasn't justified by the amount of regular enemies you had to fight to get to them. In these cases, you had to go back and grind your level up, which wasn't that fun. Being 3 or more levels lower than the boss, or any enemy in general, can be very disadvantageous to you, as your characters will miss attacks more often, their tension will be difficult to rise, and many times you'll feel like you're fighting a losing battle. It's best to stray from the main path and go fight extra enemies before getting to a boss, but I didn't like that this felt forced on you in order to beat a boss. The story is engaging, the voice acting is amazing, the graphics, music, and characters just pull you in and don't let you go. There's tons to do and rarely does it feel monotonous or boring. I'm so glad this game came overseas. It's a true gem to the Wii's library. This game gets a 4.75 out of 5 with the title of Epic.
Cool. All right.